Good evening. Welcome to ITV News. This is Monday night's calendar.
Yes, hello, good evening. Here are tonight's main stories.
No laughing matter. Plans for a crackdown on the use of nitrous oxide and more powers for police. But will it help cut antisocial behaviour?
We find this on every day outside our doorsteps. It's a frequent occurrence where we have to pick these up outside from our doors.
Also tonight, a man's killed in a serious collision on a major road in North Yorkshire.
I'll have the latest live from the scene here on the A64 near York, where some eastbound diversions are still in place.
River of rubbish calls for action over a so-called trashberg in the Rother near Sheffield.
And a meeting 8 decades in the making.
Hello, you Carol.
Why a box bought at a car boot sale in Bradford revealed a whole new chapter in a Yorkshire family's history. So first tonight to the major crackdown on so-called laughing gas, which is said to be fuelling antisocial behaviour in towns and cities across our region. Streets littered with disused nitrous oxide canisters have become a familiar sight. This afternoon, the Home Secretary said new plans to make it a Class C drug with jail sentences and unlimited fines would put an end to hordes of youths loitering in and littering parks. Well, one campaigner in Bradford has welcomed the move, but as Helen Steele reports, there are questions over whether it's too little, too late.
So these are some of the things you found out and about?
Yeah, in the field outside.
This is nitrous oxide, known as laughing gas, because it gives a brief feeling of euphoria. But according to campaigners, the effects can be far more long-lasting.
What we are seeing now, 2.5 years later, because that's how long our campaign has lasted, is the neurological damages. So we've heard stories of people that unfortunately have become paralysed in part, not as mobile, having to go to A&E as a consequence of using this. So I think it's easy to really underestimate the impact that this can have.
Were you surprised at how available it was?
Yeah, I was really surprised at how readily accessible it was.
Umaima Sadiq backed the campaign after she discovered how prolific the use of laughing gas was among young people.
Myself, I've got a balloon business, myself and my sister. Anytime we're like out or we say, oh, we do balloons, they're like, you do balloons? And I'm just like, no, not them type of balloons, obviously. But that's why it needs to not be normalised in society.
Well, you don't have to go far to find evidence of people taking this so-called laughing gas. Not far from the centre, these small silver canisters have been dumped. But the problem, according to litter pickers, is only getting bigger. People are now taking these large industrial-sized canisters, which are becoming a regular sight on our streets.
We find this on every day outside our doorsteps. It's a frequent occurrence where we have to pick these up outside from our doors.
It's not just an eyesore on the streets, but a danger on our roads, according to West Yorkshire Fire Service. They staged this incident to show what could happen under the influence of the drug. It's something Manar Akhtib found out firsthand. She stopped taking the drug after a near-fatal incident in Sheffield when a friend was driving.
He'd gone onto oncoming traffic and then we just out of nowhere, because he wanted to try and get out of it and his brain wouldn't let him because he was high, he'd crashed and put us all in danger. And that was one thing for me that told me to stop.
We've got immediate justice, hotspot policing, a ban on nitrous oxide.
The Prime Minister's announcement that possession of the drug could become illegal is welcomed back in Bradford, where they've campaigned for so long.
If this gives policing more powers and stops this gateway drug, in some ways it does give us some confidence that this is being taken seriously.
Campaigners here say educating young people would be a prevention, but for now they're happy with tougher measures if it acts as any sort of cure. Helen Steele, ITV News in Bradford.
Well, the crackdown on nitrous oxide is just one policy in the drive to tackle antisocial behaviour, which also includes new powers set to be piloted at some police forces in our region.
Our political correspondent Katie Oscroft has more details for us live at Westminster. Katie, what else is being planned?
Well, Ian, they're calling one of their new ideas immediate justice, and this is being trialled in West Yorkshire as well as elsewhere in the country. If you're guilty of antisocial behaviour, you may be forced to put right the damage you've caused within 48 hours. So if you're caught daubing graffiti on a wall in Bradford, in theory you could find yourself scrubbing it off wearing a high-vis vest the very next day. Labour's Holly Lynch there, who's also a spokesperson on crime, says a lot of this is impractical.
If the perpetrator doesn't uphold the obligations that they've committed to, it's really, really difficult to then go back and try and commit them to seeing some justice, to hold them to account for that offence. So these are sorts of initiatives that we want to see work, but those police officers are telling me it's going to be really, really difficult to make this work in effect without really significant numbers of police officers.
Well, in addition to this, South Yorkshire and Derbyshire are to become hotspot policing areas, so that means more money for an increased police presence and what it says is uniformed authority figures, so such as wardens. Local councils will be able to fine people twice as much for fly tipping. Now, the government says the idea is to stop people in their tracks before they drift on to more serious crime. Labour say, though, a lot of this is too little too late, a lot of it is impractical, and there's already a backlash from some areas which haven't come in for more funding.
OK, Katie, live for us in Westminster, thank you.
Next tonight to the fatal collision on one of North Yorkshire's busiest routes, which closed the road for several hours earlier.
The incident in which an 18-year-old died happened on the A64 near Tadcaster in the early hours of this morning. Fraser Maud is at Bilborough Top now. Fraser, what's the situation there?
Well, at the moment, the eastbound carriageway is fully open, has been for a couple of hours or so. The westbound carriageway, the eastbound carriageway, there are still closures in place. The closure is here, taking people off the A64 and round via Askham-Bryan to return onto the A64 at the junction with the A1237, the York Outer Ring Road. So minor disruption at the moment. Different case throughout the day. It was severely disrupted. Real congestion here earlier on today. Some motorists taking more than 2 hours to make the journey between York and Leeds, or between Leeds and York. Normally takes about 40 minutes or so. Police say the incident happened at around 1:20 this morning. An 18-year-old man was hit by a car, a black BMW, on the carriageway just a short way away from where I'm standing now, and they're asking anyone with information, particularly drivers who may have dashcam footage of the area, to get in touch as a matter of urgency.
OK, Fraser, for now, thank you.
There were more than 1,300 cases of people intentionally harming animals in Yorkshire last year, according to the RSPCA. The startling figure comes as the charity has given us an insight into its latest efforts to try to prevent cases of animal cruelty and neglect across the region.
It runs educational programmes aimed at teaching children about animal welfare and how to care for pets correctly, after research found that a quarter of school children have witnessed animal cruelty on social media and online. Emily Knight reports.
So, where do we think this one should be? In ours, always, sometimes, or never. Where should we put it? Never. Wonderful, yeah.
Secondary school children getting a lesson in animal welfare at one of the RSPCA's specialist education centres. The sessions here focus on items children might see being used, highlighting the ones that cause harm or distress.
So Zoe, you've got some examples of some collars here which you say should not be used on dogs.
Yeah. So our first one here is a prong collar. As you can see, they're quite heavy. They've got these prongs here that actually can press into a dog's neck, can cause them lots of pain. So these are examples of some shock collars. These go quite up close against the dog's neck, so quite uncomfortable to wear. And then the dog is essentially given an electric shock.
Last year, the charity reached more than 420,000 children and young adults through face-to-face activities like this, along with other work online and in schools.
It was interesting.
And what was it that interested you about it?
Mostly like the stuff that people put on the dogs is interesting, if it should be usable or not.
What about the muzzles?
Sometimes they can affect the dog, like they can get really nervous if you put it on them.
According to the charity's research, a quarter of children are witnessing animal cruelty and neglect on social media, with the latest figures for Yorkshire showing there were more than 1,300 cases of intentional harm reported to the RSPCA over a 12-month period, the highest number in West Yorkshire.
Sadly, there are cases of cruelty still around. Some are neglectful, some are deliberate. I think it's about making sure that we have lots and lots of different options to support those that are neglect cases, because often it's people not knowing what is appropriate and not knowing where the support is.
Loki was born into RSPCA care. His mother was rescued from a horse box where she was kept along with 7 other working collie dogs. They were only allowed out to work on a farm. They took them all in and then found out that Loki's mum was pregnant, and then Loki came along. 3-year-old Loki is part of the education team here and leads the way when it's time to go for a walk. Learning how to care for and interact with dogs like Loki is what these sessions are all about, teaching children how to care for animals and, of course, how to play with them too. Emily Knight, ITV News.
Still to come before the end of the programme. Why a rugby player's partner was left blindsided when she thought he'd taken a nasty knock.
And after a frost for some first thing this morning, some beautiful blue sky against those spring daffodils. Can't promise it's going to be quite as pretty tomorrow. The full forecast a little later on.
But first, there are fears people could be turning to dangerous DIY home treatment for some hearing problems because they can't afford to pay for help at private clinics.
The Royal National Institute for Deaf People says the NHS and many GP surgeries no longer offer treatment to remove earwax, and one audiologist from Pocklington says patients could be at risk of causing lasting damage to themselves. Nick Smith reports.
It's not something we like to think about very often, but a build-up of earwax can lead to very sticky situations if left untreated. More than 2 million people in the UK require regular removal of wax to avoid hearing problems by professional audiologists like Lucy Kapaniuk at this hearing clinic in Pocklington near York.
Firstly, it can cause hearing loss, which is quite noticeable, and can cause issues in people's day-to-day lives. It can cause tinnitus, so ringing and buzzing noises in your ears. It can cause quite a lot of pain, and it can also lead to infection.
In the past, patients could get free removal on the NHS, often by a GP. But 4 years ago, manual syringing of wax was halted over safety concerns. Many clinical commissioning groups were unable to cover the cost of alternative methods and stopped offering wax removal altogether.
A majority of people are finding it really difficult to access earwax removal services on the NHS. Many people are being told to get wax removal privately or try and manage the wax themselves. We're concerned that if they're trying to remove it themselves, that they might try unsafe methods which could cause damage to the delicate structures of the ear.
Lizzie Jackson almost went completely deaf due to waxy build-up in her ears. In desperation, she tried DIY solutions to dislodge it, which only made the problem worse.
I put olive oil in to get the wax out, and the olive oil drips out, so you put cotton wool in the outside. But if you're not careful, cotton wool gets stuck inside, and that's what happened to me.
Atia Farhat is one of the senior members at this ear and hearing clinic, offering private treatments, starting at £60 for both ears. She's taken on many patients who've had difficulty accessing NHS services.
We have seen a significant increase. We're probably getting around about 30 inquiries a day for people wanting earwax removal. They want it quite soon, or they've inquired at other locations and they cannot be seen for a good number of months.
NHS England told us we were advised that manual ear syringing should not be carried out in general practice due to associated risks, and GPs should refer to local NHS services for wax removal if self-treatment is not appropriate. But many needing earwax removal say NHS providers are almost impossible to find, leaving them to foot the bill themselves or risk their hearing slowly disappearing. Nick Smith, ITV News.
Well, the ITV Evening News follows us. Here's Mary with the details.
Coming up in the programme, Scotland's new leader.
I therefore declare Hamza Yousaf duly elected as the Scottish National Party leader.
Hamza Yousaf wins a narrow leadership election and will become First Minister. But with the cost of living crisis, the NHS under pressure and controversy over gender reforms, all in his entree, where does it leave the fight for independence? Also on the programme, our investigation reveals the landlords being paid millions to provide shocking housing conditions like this. Plus,
what's your message to the British press?
Morning. Prince Harry back in the UK as his court case against the publishers of the Daily Mail begins. Would you join me for those stories and more at 6:30?
Thanks, Mary. Kerry, looked like spring today, didn't really feel like it.
Yeah, it depends where you were in the region. I mean, it was about 6 degrees in Scarborough and it was about 10 in Sheffield. So it's if you're in that sunshine. But I've got a flashback for you tonight. This time 10 years ago, we had a very late winter storm where unseasonably cold temperatures lasted for almost a month. Blizzard conditions caused build-up over several days, and this was one of our regulars, Sandy Nicholson at Digley Reservoir, and it was the blizzard-like conditions. It was the strength of the winds really that caused the build-up in the road. You can see there in the foreground. A big thank you to Sandy for resharing and reminding us that this time 10 years ago it looked like this. Today it looked like this. And as you say, it was really nice where we got the sun, and we've got that March sunshine now. The days are longer and the temperatures in general are getting a little bit better. But the air was actually a cold air mass. So it depended whether you were in the sunny spells and it felt like spring, or if you were in that Arctic northerly air. But we had a great sunrise first thing this morning. So I want to show you just a few sunrise pickies. This was taken by Steve Butler looking towards, I think it's St Margaret's Church in Horsforth. Absolutely beautiful despite the cloud cover first thing this morning. This was a similar one taken in Otley. Big thank you to Steve Davey for posting or tagging me on Twitter, and this one by Kerry Greenfield. Pepper and Rosie having a good old morning sniff in that early sunshine, and it was a chilly start first thing. We had a touch of frost. So yeah, it was chilly today, certainly first thing, touch of frost, an Arctic air mass, but as we head deeper into this week, we're going to see those temperatures start to rise. But unfortunately, with the milder air, it's pretty unsettled.
Oh, Kerry, we can't have everything, can we? The sunshine's pretty.
You can't, Sally.
For now, thank you.
Yeah, felt warm in the sun today. Now, anglers and river wardens are demanding action after a huge collection of rubbish has almost completely blocked a section of the River Rother near Sheffield.
Yes, the so-called trashberg has angered those who fish the waterway. Anglers and river wardens want someone to be held responsible for the mess and clean it up before it further damages the environment. Here's Martin Fisher.
No one's quite sure where it came from, but this pile of floating rubbish has shocked anglers who use this section of the River Rother to fish. There's concern too that it could do permanent damage to fish stocks.
The fish are in the breeding cycle. I think on this stretch of this river this year, we can forget that. It's devastated it, and it's appalling.
This so-called trashberg is made up of everything from old tyres to children's toys. There's also what appears to be some sort of effluent.
There's some suggestions that it perhaps was a flood that saw all the rubbish coming down here and collecting. But then you've got a further question, is what you do about it. You're going to need to clear all these trees to make an access road to get at the rubbish and take it all away. And that's going to cost a lot of money.
At the moment, it's proving hard to establish who is responsible for this section of waterway, and so just who should clear it up. The Environment Agency told Calendar they are not funded to remove waste and debris unless it could cause a risk of flooding. John Blewett is a river warden and believes more must be done to prevent scenes like this.
It's the enforcement, the people getting around and actually policing it and prosecuting the polluters. There's too many. I've done it dozens and dozens of times, took evidence to people and they're going, we can't do it about it, mister. Time and time and
We
time.
get away with it?
Let's get it, just walk away with it.
Anglers discovered the trashberg weeks ago now. They're worried the longer it's left, the more damage will be done.
Well, it's a cocktail that you couldn't design to have more negative effects on this natural haven.
And there's another problem, isn't there? And that's with the flow. So I can demonstrate this. If I chuck this stick in, what happens is, as the rubbish is coming down, it's getting snagged on all the rubbish that's already here. And so it's just going nowhere.
Although the source of this rubbish remains a mystery, the need to clear it away growing more urgent every day. Martin Fisher, ITV News, near Sheffield.
Well, let's move to football now, Chris, and all of a sudden things aren't looking too great for Sheffield Wednesday, are they?
No, they're not, Sally, you're right. After 23 games unbeaten, the Owls have now lost their last 2. Yesterday looked like the perfect game for Wednesday to bounce back from their midweek defeat at Barnsley. But bottom of the table, Forest Green pulled off quite a shock and busted a few coupons in the process. This was their first win in 18 games, and more worrying for us, it was a real lacklustre performance from the Owls. Elsewhere, Doncaster were beaten 2-0 by Northampton and Mansfield drew 0-0 with Sutton. And finally from me, how about this for an elaborate and well choreographed wedding proposal? Chris Robinson pretended he'd badly injured his leg whilst playing rugby for Greetland All-Rounders near Halifax. Now, his partner Amanda, who'd recently trained in first aid, rushed onto the pitch and got, well, more than she bargained for. Chris made a miraculous recovery, rolled onto one knee and pulled out an engagement ring, which I can only assume was stashed in the physio's bag. Thankfully for Chris, Amanda said yes. So it's congratulations, isn't it, to the happy couple. A match made in heaven, that one.
Ah, see what you did there, Chris.
Can you imagine if she just said no, the sticking he got from his teammates?
Luckily, she said yes.
She
Chris,
did.
thank you very much.
Now finally to a chance discovery at a car boot sale in Bradford that opened up a whole new chapter in one family's history.
When Carol Mooney from Blackpool was given an antique gift set as a Christmas present, in it she found some long-lost items belonging to a soldier.
So began Carol's mission to track down his family so she could return the belongings. Emma Sweeney takes up the story.
Hello, you Carol? They may look like long-lost friends, but this is the first time Carol and Jim have met. Drawn together by a slip of fate and a Christmas gift box providing a glimpse into a past life that had long been buried away.
Well, my sister-in-law bought me a box set for Christmas, and it was a tankard, cufflinks and a pen. And when I looked inside, I found these items that belonged to a war veteran, a Bible, an army book, driving licence. So I just thought I'd try and find out who they belonged to rather than throw them away.
As Carol set about finding the soldier's family, her story ended up on the ITV News website. Jim discovered it, and it wasn't long before he realised the items belonged to his father, Private Sidney Duck. I was really excited that somebody'd go to such lengths to find family and what have you. I can imagine, I probably shed a tear reading through them, you know, thinking these have been in my dad's hands, you know. And they're priceless possessions that also provide a glimpse into the day-to-day rules Private Duck was expected to follow. Never discuss military, naval or air matter in public or with any stranger, no matter to what nationality he or she may belong. It's just all the secrets and things given away.
And Jim, you've travelled all the way from Leeds to Blackpool today for these items that so easily could have been lost. What do you think your dad would have made of the whole thing?
Probably said I were crackers. That's the type of chap who were, you know. Oh, what on earth are you going all that way for? A couple of bits of paper, you know. But he probably realised that it was important and he'd have done it himself, secretly. For Carol, being able to provide Jim with his father's items has come with an overwhelming sense of joy.
It's been going on for months, and I didn't really think anything would come of it, and yeah, I'm very pleased.
The precious belongings are now back in the hands of the Duck family, ready to be passed down to future generations. Emma Sweeney, ITV News, Blackpool.
Well, that's an incredible tale, isn't it? And it just goes to show, be careful what you throw out to car boot sales, because you never know the value.
I love car boot sales.
Well, so do they now. Here's Kerry with our forecast.
Good visibility on the horizon. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Hello again. So we did okay today. A decent amount of sunshine, pure blue skies to start the day with just some fair weather cloud bubbling up for the middle parts of the day, and most of those showers staying out to the North Sea and easing off as the afternoon progressed. But it's all change from tomorrow onwards, much more unsettled With low pressure in the near Atlantic feeding in showers or longer spells of rain, often cloudy and quite windy conditions, and we're also keeping our eye on this little feature coming in, this area of low pressure by Friday, which could nudge further northwards, and of course we'll keep you posted over the next few days or so. Now, dry and clear and pretty cold to start tonight. Touch of frost in places, but as the night progresses we do look to the west for thicker clouds, strengthening winds and the risk of some showery outbreaks. So if anything, those temperatures lifting a tiny bit as we head towards dawn. So not as spectacular tomorrow morning as it was this morning. 6:50 and 7:34 are your Tuesday sun times. So tomorrow it might be dry in places, maybe a bit chilly out towards the east with some sunshine, but quite quickly going downhill. Cloudy skies, outbreaks of rain heavy at times pushing eastwards and becoming quite misty and murky over higher ground as well. A damp feel to things even as things ease off into the second half of the day. And yes, the temperatures are near average, back up to double figures, but the wind's strengthening too. Now, as we head into midweek on Wednesday, there will be a briefer but more intense spell of wet and windy weather pushing its way north and eastwards, but we're on the mild side, 14, possibly 15 Celsius, and then that pretty much sets the scene for the rest of the week. Definitely mild, especially on Thursday, but often quite windy, and yes, maybe some sunshine Thursday, Friday, but showers or longer spells of rain never too far away.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
So there you go, not the most positive of forecasts, but hey, at least the sun hasn't set yet.
That's right, we'll be going home in daylight, which is a bonus.
Speak for yourselves. I'll be here after news at 10 with our late bulletin, and we'll all be back tomorrow night at 6. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.